Hi students, and welcome to another e-lesson video, this one over the grapes of wrath and realism. I believe in class I called this one John Steinbeck and realism, but we're not really studying John Steinbeck so much as we're introducing ourselves to the grapes of wrath. So I changed the name there. Hope that doesn't confuse you. Please feel free, as with all of these videos, to pause and rewind at any time to take notes, rewatch, or get caught up. Let's talk about what we're doing with this video. We're going to go over key facts about the novel, Grapes of Wrath. We're going to look at who John Steinbeck is. We're going to take a close look at the novel's conception and critical reception, and then finally we'll look at the topic of what literary realism is. So to start with, key facts about the novel, always important stuff to know. Its full title is just The Grapes of Wrath, and we'll get into what the title means here in a minute. It was written by John Steinbeck, published in 1939. It is set in the American West and sort of Midwest, depending on where you define that. The book begins in Oklahoma and ends in California. It's set during the 1930s, during the Dust Bowl, which went on during the Great Depression. More on the Dust Bowl on one of the follow-up videos. The point of view, it is told from the third-person omniscient point of view, but the focus shifts between throughout the book. It actually alternates throughout the book. The third-person omniscient narrator shifts his or her focus, its focus, between the Joad story, the main characters, and these sort of parallel allegorical narratives and descriptions. We call those the interchapters, and I'll talk more about those in a minute. Finally, the genre. This is fiction, this is a novel, this is a realist novel, it's written in that realist tradition, and a lot of people consider this an epic, and it's because the main characters go on such a long journey. It's epic in scope, and it's a journey story that the characters fight through various adversities to get to a destination, kind of like Odysseus's epic, the Odyssey. So, where did the title come from? What are the Grapes of Wrath all about? Grapes of Wrath is actually an allusion to another illusion. That's nice and dense, right? The title of the book, The Grapes of Wrath, actually refers to a line in the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And if you aren't familiar with that song, Google search it and listen to the first couple of bars, and I guarantee you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The Battle Hymn of the Republic was an American folk song that became a sort of patriotic war ballad for the Union Army back during the Civil War. The South, they played Dixie, while the Union Army played Glory, Glory, Hallelujah, the Battle Hymn of the Republic. And here's the line. This is actually from like the second or third verse, so not a lot of people even have heard this. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. He is trampling out the vintage where the grapes of wrath are stored. He hath loosed his fateful lightning, his terrible swift sword. His truth is marching on. So that's from the Battle Hymn of the Republic. But what the heck does that mean? The Battle Hymn of the Republic is actually mentions grapes of wrath as an allusion to another work, the book of Revelations from the Bible. This is from Revelations 14, verses 17 through 20. Then another angel came out of the temple which is in heaven, he also having a sharp sickle. And another angel came out from the altar, who had power over fire, and he cried with a loud cry to him who had the sharp sickle, saying, Thrust in your sharp sickle, and gather the clusters of the vine of the earth, for her grapes are fully ripe. So the angel thrust his sickle into the earth, and gathered the vine of the earth, and threw it into the great winepress of the wrath of God. And the winepress was trampled outside the city, and blood came out of the winepress up to the horses' bridles for 1,600 furlongs. If you're not familiar with the book of Revelations in the Bible, it is all about the end of days, the end of the world, the apocalypse. And just as the various Puritan ministers we studied, both John Winthrop and more importantly John Edwards, they would preach, of course, that God's wrath was just storing up. All of mankind's indiscretions, all of his sins were just storing up, as John Edwards refers to it, like waters behind a dam, continually rising, continually rising. And that's what it's actually referring to here. At the supposedly at the end of days, God will reap that's kind of a weird metaphor here. God will command that his angels sort of reap what mankind has sown. The vine of the earth here, referring specifically to our accumulation of sins and transgressions against God, and those will be thrown into a great wine press, and they will be smashed out, and blood will come out of it as the wrath of God. So it's all in a big metaphor. So I guess the grapes of wrath is an allusion to an illusion that is actually a metaphor. So it's nice and dense. It's really a nice dense thing to title a book. Anyway, what exactly are the interchapters? I mentioned those at the beginning. Um, You'll see exactly what the interchapters are by about chapter 5 or 6. You'll get used to the alternating chapter format, and you'll kind of see what the author's doing. Steinbeck alternates the focus of his novel between two parallel narratives and two parallel narrative types. The Joad story, which begins in chapter 2 and runs all the even chapters, and then this sort of separate set of allegorical sketches, which begin in chapter 1 and continue through all the odd chapters. What they do is they reinforce one another. Okay, you'll have an allegorical sketch that's just basically about the time period and some of the broader ideas going on in that time period, and then you'll have the Joad story and something that will deal with those ideas. Yeah, the story of the Joads, of course, is highly symbolic of the story of all these thousands of families during this time period. The Okies, even though they didn't all come from Oklahoma, all of them traveling west to hopefully find salvation. So they are just one family of many, and they're symbolic of that. The interchapters, though, go beyond just the symbolism. They dive more into what this time period looked like. The interchapters are very vivid in their imagery. They explore kind of the time period through nameless characters and nameless places, giving us their stories, and so they reinforce one another. The key to understanding the value of the interchapters, like what the heck they're there for, is in seeing how they echo the ideas presented in the main chapters, the chapters that are actually about the Joad family. And I think right away you'll see what he's trying to do with those interchapters, and we'll talk about it in class. But that's just to give you a heads up. To continue, let's talk about John Steinbeck. John Steinbeck was born in 1902 in Salinas, California. He died in 1968 in New York. His best-known works were Of Mice and Men in 1937, The Long Valley in 1938, and East of Eden in 1952. East of Eden, by the way, is his favorite work, although Grapes of Wrath is widely considered his most celebrated work. Some of the common themes Steinbeck deals with: social stratification, meaning the stratification of society, how society divides itself up into a sort of class system and the struggles that arise out of that. Yeah, the economic struggle between those classes. Various theories of social stratification say that a society divides itself into those classes, and those classes remain, and each class is sort of aspiring to reach the next class above it, but it can never quite fully get there. But it's that struggle to rise to the next class that kind of keeps society in balance. A lot of his novels are social criticisms that discuss that economic strife as one class tries to reach the status of the next. Finally, another common theme: Marxism is pervasive throughout Grapes of Wrath. We see the plight of the American worker being completely undermined, completely just buried under by the powerful capitalistic forces of the personified in the banks and the farm co-ops and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of Marxism in this book, and I've got a supplementary video for you to watch to explain exactly what that is. The novel's conception and reception. First of all, its conception. When John Steinbeck wrote the novel, before he started writing the novel, he did hands-on research. During the Dust Bowl in the mid-30s, Steinbeck actually went to live with a family in Oklahoma, one of these Okies, one of these displaced families who had lost their farms. And he actually made the journey with them to California, so he saw everything they went through firsthand. When the novel was published, it was an immediate bestseller back in 1939, and it was right away in 1940 adapted into an Oscar-winning film. Again, I believe it won an Oscar in 1940. The novel actually won the Pulitzer in 1940 as well. So a big couple of years for Steinbeck. Steinbeck would, by the way, later go on to win the Nobel Prize in Literature in 1962. The book, Grapes of Wrath, is often praised for its harsh, realistic, almost brutal, well, definitely brutal, portrayal of this very turbulent time in America. That's one of the reasons why it is so highly praised by critics. There are critics who do not like the novel for a lot of reasons. The biggest one is that the characters are somewhat flat. They don't undergo a lot of realization, a lot of change. They stay very flat. They're not very dynamic. The novel does not focus very much on what is going on inside the characters' brains. Like, it doesn't focus much on how the human psyche is affected by the trauma and the torment and the strife that they go through. Rather, it focuses on the broader social conflicts. It's a much more broader focused novel. It doesn't focus so much on what the individual goes through, and that's the sort of criticism there. As I said before, The Grapes of Wrath is classified as a realistic novel, so let's talk about realism. What was this? Realism was a literary movement which emerged in the late 19th century. I'd say late 19th century, really around about the late 1860s, post-Civil War. Yeah, and it ran through right up until World War I. It had a lot of offshoots. Naturalism was a type of realism. Regionalism was a type of realism. But that was when realism really hit its stride. Um, it ran in direct opposition to Romanticism, and we've already talked at length about what Romanticism is. If Romanticism is a type of work that presents life as we would have it be, that is, in a more picturesque, more adventurous, more heroic than the actual style, then Realism presents a more accurate imitation of life as it is. And it even goes so far as to celebrate the average, the commonplace, and the everyday. The heroes in a realistic novel are everyday people doing everyday things, and that is in itself heroic, those sorts of things. Whereas the hero in a romantic novel would be a larger-than-life personality, someone with great power and authority and those sorts of things. So, if realism was a literary movement which lasted from the late 1860s up to World War I, why is Steinbeck considered a realist? Because he wrote this in the 30s. He really isn't. I need to specify. Steinbeck pulls from the naturalist school, the modernist school, and the realist traditions. But The Grapes of Wrath does fit best into the realist genre. It's just so the book Grapes of Wrath is realist, but don't consider really Steinbeck a realist, because he was more of a modernist that pulled from a bunch of different genres. All right, that's it for my video. I have a couple more videos for you to watch, a couple of crash course videos that will help acquaint you with this time period. First of all, crash course U.S. History number 33, The Great Depression, and then crash course World History number 33, Capitalism and Socialism. Help give you a better founding for what this book is about. I've decided that I don't need you to take notes over the crash course videos unless you really want to. I just want to see that you have taken notes over my video, the introductory material that I think you need to know. Please do watch these two videos because it is very helpful to the novel, to understanding the novel, and you will need to have watched these to answer the question on the follow-up assignment that goes with this e-lesson. So that's it. Thank you for watching. Feel free to watch again or go back and look at things that you might have missed, and I'll see you in class. Have a great break.